Hello. So we start our first part regarding explanation of myths which are this basement for our civilization since over 2000 years, but in fact it was also before this time. The most important thing which is still propagated and is still let's say basis, these are our roots, is a Christian theory or system, religion. So according to our approach, we will analyze it and show if this is true or not, what is not, what is here myth, and what was the most probable situation in those times, and how it was developed that we are now at this point that we are, that a lot of myths and not educated people are repeating myths as a sure true. Okay, the first thing which I want to start is to explain the basics, the roots. Who was Jesus, and how it was, if this is true in Gospels, in Bible, in these four Gospels, if this is somehow connected to the reality, or if it was possible that it was in this exactly everything happened like this, how this is described there. So the good starting point, so we will use here a formalism of let's say, do the evidence by negation. This is the simplest way. So we will find the weak points, and we will then deduce, induct, if what are the consequences. So the first thing is following. Let's start from such a very simple thing. If such a city or village with what is very important with synagogue existed, like Nazareth in the first century after Christ, let's say, AC. So when you check the sources, except of course Gospels, you will not find any mentioning any information about this such city in the first century. No other sources mention this. And what is very important, there is a very good known such a historian from the ancient time who is called Josephus Flavio, who was a Jew. He took part in the defense in the defense of the city, the castle of Jotapata in Galilee in 60s after Christ, the time of Nero. And this campaign led Vespasian, which became later Caesar, and Josephus Flavio describes very detailed Galilee, in this region of Galilee, in Judea, then later called as a punishment by Romans, Palestine, by Hadrian, I think, and he took a part as a leader, as a commander of defense of Jotapata, and he described exactly, Josephus Flavio described a very detailed Galilee, and described what is very important city, village, which is called Sepphoris, and it is described that it took part in this campaign. Yes, it was involved in the campaign of Vespasianus. And what is very interesting, the Sepphoris lies in the distance of about 4 kilometers from the today's Nazareth. So why it was not mentioned when the synagogue was there? There is information in Evangelium of, I think, Mateo, doesn't matter, but you can find it, that in Nazareth was synagogue and kind of temple, but in fact the synagogue is not the temple, and it's only 4 kilometers. And why, when the Sepphoris was known, and the most probably there was their synagogue, why 4 kilometers apart from this could be existed such a large city like Nazareth, and was not mentioned? By why? And from the logistical point of view, it doesn't make sense there, because there was a few people living compared to nowadays. So in fact the Nazareth would be situated in the middle of nowhere, because the Sepphoris took the whole role of the center there. So it's very suspicious, and you can check it on the everybody can check it now using the Google Maps. I checked this, and also you can see a lot of videos from Nazareth, and the place, how this is situated, and let's say how there is a terrain there. So you will see this place is very suspicious, and everything shows that it doesn't exist as such a city in those times. And what is interesting, there is a big coincidence with of the name with the old Jews rules of monks, which is called Nazireat. So we'll continue later who was Jesus. So the first thing, start from this and check this. Everybody who wants to investigate it, check this. So the most probable thing is that such a city didn't exist in the first century. It was created, it was established later, but we will explain it very slowly, not to discover everything with the principle of Hollywood, let's say, rules, not show everything at once, because it will be also a lot of information, but we want to come to every point in a very such a way that everything is flowing from logically from previous, let's say, previous topic. So we see that something is wrong, something is not correct there, but it of course doesn't negate that Jesus existed, yes, but it is showing that probably there was a lot of mistakes and changes, manipulation during writing the current version of Evangelia, of Gospel. And basing on this, we want to show the question, to establish a question. Was it possible that in those times there could exist such a guy like Jesus, who first in a very extraterrestrial way was born? The first thing. Of course, we explained it on our introduction part that it is impossible because the human being is coming from bacteria, it is consisted of DNA, etc. Universe started by Big Bang and was not created, because I used such a sentence, that was created. No, it was not created by anybody. Yes, in this sense that it was created during the Big Bang, but it started in Big Bang from itself, by itself, with no any, let's say, old oppa or old guy with some kind of who was magician and in 7 days, etc. No. But let's go back to our question. Was it possible that the guy who was propagating a peace, no violence, those times, was running through the Galilee, and no ancient historian noticed this, and was it possible such a scenario? The guy without any violence, with a pure love, let's say, was running, and this was collecting such an amount of people. And yes, this is the basic question. So let's start from the next, let's go to the next point. That in those times there were a lot of such a parts of Jews religion. One of the Jews, let's say, branches were the guys which were called Essenes, but also there was such a part which was called a fourth philosophy, which was started by a guy called Judah of Galilee, who was living and was coming from Gamla, which is a very important city. But this city existed, you can check it. It is still there, and it is proven that it was existed and in those times. It is also mentioned by Josephus Flavio, and we will go to analysis of these movements, and at those times what happened. And it was if this scenario, like a candidate for a king of Jews was there, that somebody came and wanted to run as a, let's say, in a competition to become a king of Jews. Okay, I must now mention one thing. I am on which I am basing now also on very important source, which is a root source for me, but of course it is worth to compare and check with other sources like ancient histories written by a lot of guys. You have a lot of sources, but there is a very important position written by a very good Italian historian, I think a professor of history, and he wrote such a book under also a pseudonym nickname, and this name is Leo Zen. It is such a mystical, let's say, name, but of course it is because of the security reason, and he's Italian, so he is afraid of a very good Catholic people, which is a mafia, you know, of Italy, which will kill him very, very fast, probably. And he wrote such a book, which is called "How the Christianity was created, not created, but was I must find a good word. Sorry, I must check it. We make we do a short break. Okay, we continue. The title of this book is called "How the Christianity was invented." Yes, so this like a theoretical construct. So the author is Leo Zen, and how the Christianity was invented. And you can find there a lot of sources on which is basing author. Of course, a lot of sources, because we must understand one thing. Everything happened 2000 years ago, roughly. So a lot of in meantime was manipulated. A lot of original sources were destroyed. So now the sources are very, very inaccurate and manipulated. So it is a kind of detective, let's say, induction to show what was going on. So we will now continue. We go back. Who was the candidate? Could be a candidate for the king of Jews in those times. You must remember, it was a time where Pontius Pilatus was ruled in Judea, and it was a very cruel time. It was a lot of force, a lot of people were killed there and used by Romans to get money from there. Were treated in very inhuman way, and the Jews were simply invaded by Romans, conquered in the brutal campaign, and Jews simply wanted to get their independence back. For example, like my country, Poland, a lot of times we started uprisings, succeeded or not. It was dependent on the external situation, political situation also. So it will play here also a big role. So who could be a candidate for this, for such a king of Jews, Messiah, who will lead to the reconstruction of country of state of Jews, of Judea. Of course, according to the Jews, let's say, history and tradition, it should be somebody from the king's dynasty, and the right to this had a just sorry, the direct right to this from the legal point of view had a firstborn, a man, firstborn son, let's say, of such a person who was a king or let's say pretendant to the king. And as we find this information in Gospels, the Jesus described there, the man described there, was a firstborn. It is written directly. Firstborn. The Maria, some Evangelium, you can find it, which, but I don't remember now, but you can easily find it, which Gospel is telling that it was firstborn. That Jesus was firstborn son of Maria. So it is very important information. And now we have another very important information. When he was firstborn, it means that somebody was secondborn. So only logically thinking, so he should have brothers and probably sisters. As we see in reality later, he had, of course, church, everybody saying that he had no, because he was a god, etc., etc. But it's another story. So, basing on our information that Nazareth couldn't exist, there was a city with synagogue, and you can find it in one gospel. I will also not mention that you when you go to the book of Leo Zen, you will find it. In which gospel is this, that someday Jesus came to the synagogue and started to teach, and the Pharisees and etc. and the let's say priests are very abused, very confused, and they wanted to kill him, and they led him to a ridge to push him from the high ridge, and it is written directly that it was Nazareth. So as I told, it was not Nazareth because it didn't exist probably, but there is such a city was on those time, which is very, very good fits to this, and I mentioned this already, which is called Gamala Gamla. There is such a ridge there because the Gamala Gamla is lying on the place which is called the Golan Heights. When you go to the Golan Heights, you see that there is a lot of ridges there, and you must be very careful not to get into such a hole, not to die, you know, not to fall down and to die, to be killed. And this city fits perfectly to this area. And in this area, as I mentioned, from this city is coming a guy which is called Judah of Galilee. And Judah of Galilee had children. And of course, Judah of Galilee was a leader of uprising mentioned by Bible, and mentioned a lot of places by Josephus Flavio. And as you see, such a guy, the Judah of Galilee was the ancestor of the king's dynasty, of Jewish king dynasty. So his firstborn son would be a perfect match for the leader of uprising to become of the king of the Galilee, of the Jews. Exactly such a person like Jesus, they claim Jesus was. And he came from Gamla. When you see this, it is very close to Galilee. It is on opposite side of Galilee Lake, or Tiberias Lake. Now, on the second part of this lake, it's Golan Heights. These are Golan Heights, and it is not Galilee. It is Canaan. Very important place. And what is very important, we know now everything very good about this place, because in 1967, there was such a thing like a 6-day war, which won Israel and took the Golan Heights. According to my opinion, it was a good, let's say, legal thing, because Golan Heights, from Golan Heights, Israel was shelled and pounded by Syrians. So civilians, innocent people were killed. I recommend also a very good, let's say, a series of films which is about Eli, Israel agent, undercover agent, which is on the Netflix, and this is the main role is casted by a guy who performed the role of Borat, but it's a very good series. So there is a lot of films on YouTube. You can see the Gamla, and it was also mentioned by Flavius that there was a castle there, and because of this, the Judah of Galilee, which was a leader of the uprising, could hide there and stay there for a long time, untouched by the Roman legions and Roman army. So it's very logical that from this point of view, from this city could come a guy who was a pretending for a king of Jews. And on this place I should mention also that there are some other theories of origins of Jesus. So, for example, a lot of Jews also believe or think that the father of Jesus was a Roman soldier, which was called Pandera, and even the German television found his grave, but it is very complicated to me, I think, because the Jews never admit such a guy to lead a uprising or such a movement, and maybe, but it's very complicated. So she would be immediately stoned if they discovered this. But they think that it was, let's say, yeah, it was basing of the writings of some guys in the first centuries, which were done destroyed by the Christians after Constantine, by the holy guys like Augustinus, and a very important guy which is called Eusebio of Caesarea. Guy was called Celsius. We know only pieces of the writings because they were destroyed. There was a lot of time to destroy it and to wipe out everything what is showing real roots of Jesus, and it was used, and they did it, and they did it very wisely. But the truth is defending, it's self-defending thing, which is very hard to change the history. And now we know that it was not like this in the one like probably like it's described in Gospels. So we continue to this point. From this point, the was the founder of fourth philosophy, which had a lot of common things with Athens. Ancient Athens, probably the son of the Judah of Galilee was one of the Athens, probably we think, but it was close to this. So we have now a lot of evidence how the guys behave there. Athens. So the son of Judah of Galilee, mentioned by Leo Zen, was called Johannes, not Jesus, but Johannes. So we now discovered, I think, one of the most important things. How was the name of this guy? There was a lot of Johanneses there at those times, but Jesus, Joshua, it was written in another way, let's say. In Latin, it would be written by Y, not by E. And Jesus, it was then established, the name was established later by a guy called Eusebio of Caesarea, but we will come to this point. So as conclusion for this part, I want to say one thing, that the king's dynasty, from which was pretending the Gospels Jesus, but in reality probably Johannes, Jan, was David's dynasty. It is also written in Gospels. So every king in Israel should be from the David's dynasty. David existed, probably high, because we have evidences, some artifacts. But for example, his predecessor, like Moses and etc., we don't know if existed. There are no evidences, but David existed. And in Israel, in Jewish history, every king must be from the dynasty of David. So Judah of Galilee was from the David dynasty. One remark for the Jan, it was written in Latin Johannes via I. J was not used in Latin at those times, and you see such a abbreviation on the cross where he was crucified, Jesus, Inri. I-N-R-E. And why there is I first, yes, and last I also, there's such a question, but for me it was always explained because I was I was educated in strong Orthodox Catholic region. I was a very strong believer, etc. Catholic was, and why this is I and not J like Jesus, or Y like Joshua? Because it is Johannes, probably abbreviation. Then I am talking about the next very important point, which is making a hole in a whole theory. But there is a lot of hole. It holes in the theory. In fact, there is no any consistent fragment there, but everything is holes. Johannes should be Nazareus, of course. Nazareth didn't exist, so Nazireus. We will explain from later from where it comes. Next things are very obvious. Rex, king of Judeorum, also written via E. So after this point of view, somebody who is thinking by negatio, he should not believe, yes, already. But we will prove deliver more proofs, yes, for this, that this is a myth, everything. Everything, yes. Let's say statistically 90% or more. So have a good time, have a good rest, and see you on the next part.